The world has been set a target, net zero carbon emissions by the middle of this century. There's widespread agreement that's what's needed to avoid devastating environmental damage. But setting a target is the easy bit. At today's virtual summit, President Biden wanted to show his administration is treating this very differently to his predecessor, announcing a new target for the United States, cutting planet heating emissions to half of 2005 levels in the next 10 years.
Scientists tell us that this is the decisive decade. This is the decade we must make decisions that will avoid the worst consequences of the climate crisis.
But many don't think much of what's being announced.
And of course, these very insufficient targets are better than nothing. But we cannot be satisfied with something just because it's better than nothing. We have to go further than that. We must believe that we can do this, because we can.
In just 7 months' time, world leaders are due to gather here in Glasgow for the big environmental summit, COP26. As head of the host government, Boris Johnson's under pressure to demonstrate he is taking a lead when it comes to climate change.
And don't forget that the UK has been able to cut our own CO2 emissions by about 42% on 1990 levels, and we've seen our economy grow by 73%. You can do both at once. Cake, have, eat is my message to you.
But even if that is the case, will some familiar parts of our lives have to change? In Glasgow, low emission zones are being introduced to cut down on this. But campaigners say governments will have to spend to encourage us out of our cars.
For that to be fair and for people to go along with that, there needs to be a lot of positive measures, a lot of carrots, if you like, brought in alongside it. Free bus travel, making it really easy and safe to walk and cycle. These are essential if we're going to move away from fossil fuel cars.
The challenges are familiar, the promises still have to be kept. But with the US back, and with countries like China taking part, world leaders do seem to be focusing again on what the American president calls the existential crisis of our time.
And Andy, there were some significant promises made today. It is, of course, though, a global effort. So what are the hopes ahead of the crucial summit in Glasgow later this year?
Well, Sian, this summit was postponed from last year because of the pandemic. It will go ahead in November. I guess the point of these summits is that governments have to front up. They have to be able to look at fellow leaders in the eye and say, see, we are at least starting to deliver on these promises. If they don't, they run the risk of being pretty publicly shamed. Now, with America fully back in the international framework, I think that pressure to deliver does grow. It grows on the United States, it grows on China, it grows on countries like Australia, where Joe Biden's already said he thinks Australia should be doing more to counter emissions. Now, will all the promises be kept? I doubt it, but there is a mood right now that progress really can be made. One disappointment, perhaps, Greta Thunberg's already said she won't be coming here. She says with COVID, it's too soon to be having this sort of gathering.